Today, just to stop and have you think a little bit, imagine what it would be like if I knew everything that you do every day, where you go, every detail about your day. But then beyond that, what if I knew everything you thought about during the day? Every day. Everything you thought about. The good and the bad. Okay? Imagine if I had the power to do that, right? What that would be like. And imagine if you were going to say something and I could tell you before you said it what you were going to say. Okay, we're going to look at Psalm 139 because that's what God does. Okay? So let's look, Psalm 139. If you got your Bibles, turn to them. Is it in the bulletin or not? Okay, because I'm going to be rotating stuff here. But anyway, I'll be reading it and you can look at it. But you know, it's this psalm is all about intimacy with God. This whole psalm, as we talk about it, remember that it's all about an intimacy, a real closeness with God, who knows all about us. He's inside of it. I mean, he knows inside everything you think. You know, we tend to often, people often say, well, it's like God isn't there. He's not paying attention to me. By revelation of the Bible and by faith, we realize that no matter how we feel about it, God is totally involved in our lives. Totally. In fact, it's interesting when Paul was talking in the book of Acts to the people, the idol worshipers and so, he said, yeah, even your poets say, in God, in him we live and move and have our being, right? Even the pagan poets were saying this, God is totally involved in our lives. Whether we recognize it or not, he's totally involved. So there's an intimacy there. God is right there with us all the time. That's the bigness of God, but it's an intimacy thing. This psalm is about intimacy. Karen and I do Crossroads, which is Bible studies that people from prisons all over the nation, we correct their Bible studies and write them a letter. And one of the things I often add when I do a letter is read Psalm 139 in your Bibles and remember that God is totally with you right now. Because this, of all the Psalms, I mean, it's like God is right there and you get it from these words, right? So if Psalm 139 is not on your radar, put it on your radar. I mean, it's just such a powerful psalm. So we start out, and I look at the first 6 verses first. O Lord, you have searched me, and you know me. And by the way, it is interesting to me that the word know there is the same word used in the Old Testament for having sex, okay? The man, Adam knew his wife, okay? What I'm saying is that's a rich word. It's not, oh yeah, he knows it. But the point I'm trying to make with this is the way that word is used is that God knows you. He knows all about you. He knows everything about you. He's close to you. He's close to you. He's not just out there. You know when I sit and when I get up, okay? When I sit down, when I get up, okay? He says, you perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. He knows our schedule, okay? He knows where we're going. This is when you go there, and this is the route you take in your car and all that, right? He knows you're going out. He knows you're laying down. He knows what time your bedtime is. When you're going to bed at night. You are familiar with all my ways. He just knows our life, period. And then before a word is on my tongue, you know it completely, oh Lord, right? I mean, ready to say something, well, you know what I'm going to say, right? He does. He knows what we're going to say. It's an amazing thing to think about. You hem me in behind and before. You've laid your hand upon me. Such knowledge is, when that laying the hand upon me is like when God says in Isaiah to Israel, he says, I hold your right hand. Hold you by your right hand. You're my little Israel. You're my kids. I love you. Okay? And that's the same language of verse 5. Behind, before, you laid your hand upon me. I mean, that you're close to me. The hand being laid upon you means I love you. I care about you. And then verse 6. Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It's too lofty for me to attain, right? It's like, David is saying, it blows my mind. You can use whatever your words, but it blows my mind. It short circuits my ability to think. I just can't imagine something like this. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's the kind of relationship that's going on here. Total. Theologically, by the way, we call that omniscience, all-knowing. God is all-knowing. Theologically, we use the term omniscience, all-knowing. He knows all this. He knows all this. And then in 7 through 12, you get the theological word omnipresence, okay? All omnipresence. He's everywhere. And so you get that in the following verses. Let's go to 7 through 12. In 7 through 12, we read, where could I go? Even if I wanted to get away from you, where could I go? Where could I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? Again, when people say, well, I don't think God's there. Well, even if you wanted God not to be there, he's there. I mean, even if you wanted to flee, he's there. If I go, and then it's the up and down thing. If I go up to the heavens, you're there. If you took a space rocket and went out in the heavens, he'd be there. I mean, you wouldn't get away from him. If I make my bed in the depths, the bottoms, you're there too. Now we go horizontally, right? If I rise on the wings of the dawn, when the sun comes up in the east, if I go over there, or if I settle in the west on the far side of the sea, the Mediterranean, whatever, the ocean, the lake, even there, your hand will, what? Guide me? There's a love there, right? There's a concern for you. He's going to guide you, and your right hand will hold me fast. It's going to hang on to you. It's going to hang on to you. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, it's like it's dark. He doesn't know where I am. And the light become night around me, all darkness. Even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day. For darkness is just like light to you. It doesn't make any difference. See us. And then you got these beautiful, beautiful words here of, again, that intimacy. For you created, 13 following, for you created me, 13 through 18. You created my inmost being. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I'm guessing that most of you, and we're growing up into a modern age where we just buy clothes now, but most of you probably remember seeing your mother or an elderly person knitting, okay, in a chair. Sometimes you go to a rest home, you'll see somebody knitting, okay? But you see somebody just sitting back there and, putting something together like that. It's like David is saying, it's like you knit me, you put me together in my mother's womb. God made us intricately, the detail of putting us together, making us, each individually who we are in our own uniqueness. It's a beautiful picture. And this picture, by the way, is often used to remind us again of the beauty of birth, the beauty of valuing human life, pre-birth, It's such a beautiful kind of a thing. And the dignity of each human being. To me, this is anti-racism. I mean, God is putting people together in the mothers, each individually, each in a beautiful kind of a way. I praise you. because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Amazing. Your works are wonderful. I know, farewell. I remember when my first child was born, Sonia, the doctor said, it's a miracle every time. I mean, he was watching me ooh and ah over my little baby, and he says it's a miracle every time, The birth of a child is a beautiful thing. Some of you remember, when the family had their last baby, I think some of you wanted to hold it. I did. I wanted to hold it. Karen wanted to hold it. You look at those tiny little fingers, right? And it's amazing. A baby, Yesterday I was visiting with a new grandma, and I said, I see you got a new grandchild. And she just lit up, and she said, oh, it's so special holding a real little baby. There's something so powerful about that when you think of it. Many fathers have said that the most powerful event in their life was to hold their newborn child. Many fathers interviewed have said that's the most powerful thing in their life, just to hold the miracle of life. Those tiny fingers, little mouth, face scrunched up before it gives a good cry. Think about that too, that already 18 days from conception, long before birth, the heart begins to beat. Now listen, the heart is an awesome pump that goes and goes without being plugged in. I mean, think about that heart, without being plugged in. It goes and goes. It beats 2.5 billion times without a grease job, without an oil change. It's amazing. 2.5 billion times is an average. Blood pumping through in an adult body. Listen to this, 12,000 miles of blood vessels. It's amazing, right? The kidneys alone have 280 miles of filter tubes. Okay? So yeah, when he says here, he says in verse 14, I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Yeah, I would say we're fearfully and wonderfully made. It's amazing. I'm a nature nut, but you don't even have to look at nature to be impressed. When you start studying biology like this, you're impressed right away. Amazing thing. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in the secret place. The secret place. When I was woven together in the depths of the earth. It's like when nobody could see me. What's going on there, by the way, is this is kind of like an artist thing. God in His creativity is doing this, but so many artists too, when they're working on a big art project, they don't want anybody to see it until it's done. Okay? It's secret. And then finally they get all done, and here it is. It's like, wow. Okay? And that's what's going on in the psalm. It's like, God is doing this secretly, it's beautiful, and then there it comes. We can look at it. Beautiful. And then you got that wild verse. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Ooh, that's a mind blower, okay? That's where we get the idea of God numbering our days. I mean, He knows the day we're going to die. It's amazing. It's amazing. How precious to me are your thoughts, O God. How vast is the sum of them. Were I to count them, they would outnumber the grains of the sand. When I awake, I am still with you. Note that. Again, that theme goes through the entire Bible. God with us. Emmanuel, God with us. The book of Revelation at the end, God is with us. All the time. Isaiah, God is with you. Here he says, I am still with you. God is with us all the time. Then you get those kind of wild verses there, 19. If only you would slay the wicked, O God. Away from me, you bloodthirsty men. They speak of you with evil intent. Your adversaries misuse your name. Do I not hate those who hate you, O Lord, and abhor those who rise up against you? I have nothing but hatred for them. I count them my enemies. So what do you do with this, okay? Just a couple things as you do this. And by the way, when I do the Psalms, if some verses I can't relate to as good, I admit I skip them. I mean, the Psalms are meant to be a meditative, chew on it, ponder it kind of a thing. What happens here is before the fulfillment with the New Testament coming in, is Jesus says, you've heard this, hate your enemies. But he says, I'm telling you, New Testament, love your enemies, okay? So you've got a switch going on here, okay? You've got a switch. Love your enemies. The other thing that's going on there that's helpful for me, and it's in the NIV Study Bible notes, by the way, too, but the language in these verses is just like the language in the Hittite treaties between kings when they make a deal. So when one nation, for example, if Israel was making a treaty with another king, then the deal was that other king would side with Israel instead of getting blown away. He says, okay, we'll be partners together, and those enemies over there, now they become your enemies too, Israel. If you're going to partner with me and I'm going to work with you, those bad guys that are my bad guys become your bad guys, okay? And if you look at the language, that's exactly what's going on. He says, yep, your enemies, they're my enemies. If you hate them, I hate them, okay? And that's going on. Basically saying, God, you are my king. You are my king. Not somebody else. You, God, are my king. There goes one of those little babies we were talking about coming in here. And then you have that ending, search me, O God, and know my heart. Know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts, and see if there's any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting. Yeah, in a beautiful way, ending that all. One time when I was living in Iowa, Karen and I, we do a lot of camping, and we wanted to camp in the Porcupine Mountains. Some of you know that the Porcupine Mountains are way up in upper Michigan on Lake Superior. And we wanted to camp out there. And because we were younger then, a few years ago, anyway, we did a lot of driving through the night because we don't have time, vacation time, to waste time on the road. So we drive at night and then we get there in the morning. So we left Sunday night late, and all night long, I never had a night like this ever. All night long, it poured torrential rain all the way up to the upper Michigan shoreline, Lake Superior, with extreme winds. These were 50 to 60 mile an hour winds, okay? 50 to 60 mile an hour winds. And the car, we were in our van, the van actually shook while we were driving. You could feel it shake while we were driving. And so it was wild. And then with that, it got colder. And we got up there, we were going to put our tent up. And it was too wild. I mean, there was no way we were going to put a tent up. So we grabbed a motel for the day. And all day long, this kept on going. And finally, that night, we got up to get out and put up our tent. We went out there. It turns out that we went to the shoreline in the morning, And I got on the shoreline, and I saw this butterfly. You know, this butterfly was, I was amazed. I wanted to take a picture of it for one reason. That butterfly somehow had migrated across Lake Superior and was still alive. Okay? I mean, to me, it deserved a picture just for being alive. How in the world that butterfly could be alive after 50 to 60 mile an hour winds and torrential rain? It's amazing to me. And so I took a picture of this thing, and as you can see, it's pretty drab. It's pretty drab. I mean, it's okay. It looks more like a moth than a butterfly, but it didn't turn me on. But I thought I still got to take a picture of it because it's so heroic what it did, right? So I'm sitting there, and it's cold. I mean, it's frost on the ground. This is cold. This is not just cold. This is to the freezing temperatures. And the sun came out, and this thing opened its wings, and that was inside. It's like, look at that, blues, reds. It was gorgeous. And this is a plain old, looked like regular old butterfly. It's a mourning cloak, and that's what they do. And I just want to have you think about this. When you think of God knitting us together in the womb, and the closeness of God with each one, and the uniqueness of each person, how many times don't we look at another person as being just a regular old person? You know, nothing special, you know, just a regular old person. And then the more we get to listen to that person's stories, and we start to get to know who that person really is, it's like, wow, there's a lot of beauty there, right? I throw that out to you because we need to always pay attention to people, no matter who they are, and realize that everybody has all kinds of beautiful things inside of them, whether they look that way first or not. And we need to realize what, you know, to respect that. To respect that. This is the lake shore that morning. That's where that butterfly was. And you can see the waves are still coming in on the shoreline there, and he's on these rocks over here. Gene Peterson, who is a pastor to pastors, he writes these words, and I might have referred to them before, but they're really good words to remember. He says, every meeting with another person is a privilege. What has God been doing in this person's life since birth? You know, just think on that. In other words, all of this Psalm 139 stuff of the intimacy of God, knowing us completely, God is doing this kind of stuff with all of you. But not only all of you, but the people we meet out there too, that we might think don't have anything to do with God. Well, God's been working on them too. It's an amazing thing. It says respect other people. And God is doing this work in other people. And we might say, well, I bet he's not doing a thing with so-and-so, right? Well, God is doing things with people. And it's amazing how sometimes when you get to talk to people, you find out, yeah, he's been doing things with them, and you had no clue that was going on. Well, there's a lot of things we don't know, okay? But a respect for other people and the beauty that lies in them. You know, I'll admit, you know, one thing that dovetails with this for me is that I hear stories about near-death experiences where these people have their whole life reflected back, and it's like God is looking at them and says, okay, now, what did you learn from that? And he has a flashback on their life with meaningful scenes that have happened in their life that sometimes a person has forgotten about. They were so powerful. It's like, okay, Did you learn something from this? Okay? I'm just saying that God knows everything about you, and He's close to you. And He's paying total attention to your life and how you respond to everything that happens in your life in a very intimate and close way. And sometime you'll get to find out about it when you meet Him face to face. And we'll talk about that, okay? And He'll help you to deal with that. But the thing is that we need to see not only ourselves that way, but other people. And that should make us ready and open to listen to somebody else's story and even ask if they can share part of their story with us. Because God is doing work in their life too. So what is He doing? What is He doing? Just one thing yet. Everything that I've just been talking about, I recognize that, again, we often feel like God is not paying attention. He's not there. By faith, you and I need to believe that He is there. You know, I do that often with my morning prayer when I get up and I'm having a time of devotions, you know. It doesn't make a difference what I feel, but I need to believe, and I remind myself of this. Lord, you're right here, and you love me. You love me. Psalm 139. You love me more than any other person in the world loves me. And so it's okay that God is right there with you. It's okay. You don't have to be afraid. Fear not. He loves you more than any other person in the world. He loves you. And He's right there when you're sitting down with Him. He's right there. And He loves you. In this ending of the psalm, this ending, the way it ends, you know, he says, Lord, search me and you know my heart and so on. And the previous verses, you know, it's like he's saying, God, you're my king. I just want us to, in response, you know, recognize, oh, and by the way, I threw these into, just to remind all these people, these are just people that I took pictures of, okay? It's not Karen, okay? Not even in her younger days, although she did ride horses. But it's like I see these people and then I say, what is God doing in this person's life? What is God doing in this person's life? Yeah? Huh? What is God doing in this person's life? Okay? And then I just like, in response for our prayer, we're just going to sing this song. You know it. And just look at the words first, right? I love you, Lord. I love you back, right? He loves us more than anybody. And I lift my voice to worship you, O my soul, rejoice. Take joy, my King, in what you hear. My King, right? My one and only King, says David. You're my King. And what you hear, let it be a sweet sound in your ear. It's like you're telling God, okay, God, I know you love me more than anyone else, but now I'm just saying to you, I love you too. Okay? I invite you to sing with me together. I love you, Lord, and I lift my voice to worship you, O my soul, rejoice. Take joy, my King, in what you hear. May it be a sweet, sweet sound in your ear. And whenever you sing to the Lord, and whenever you talk to the Lord and tell Him that you love Him, just remember that he hears you and he takes delight in your telling him that.